help people understand a little bit about what was this crazy plan? Why was it so crazy, and what was the problem you were looking to solve?
Okay, sure. I'll give you some context how this all started. This all started probably in about 2017. I wasn't even a politician at that time. And what happened to me? I personally did not have a family doctor. I was like many, just over 50% of the people that reside here in BC. What a frustration! I couldn't get a family doctor, and I had to use a walk-in clinic all the time. So the only time, of course, being, I was a very healthy man. Triathlete, for God's sake. I did one in my 20s, my 30s, my 40s, my 50s, and I decided I was going to do one last one in my 60s. So I'm a lot older than I look, but so I was actually training with my daughter, to tell you the truth, who's very athletic. And and I wasn't that earlier in the year I had developed pneumonia. I've never had pneumonia before, and it's where you have to sleep sitting up basically because you feel like you can't breathe. So I did get over that. So about 6 months later, I had the same symptoms, and I thought, oh my God, I've got pneumonia again. And it was a cardiac nurse that ran into me one time, and she was a friend, and she looked at me and said, "You got to get to the hospital. Stat. You're gray, and you don't look good." So I ended up going over to emergency, and sure enough, what happened is I had congestive heart failure. Yeah, so interesting. So so the adventure is in the end I ended up getting the defibrillator in my body, uh and then after they treat me for that, then they tell me that I'm a diabetic. So they fix the heart problem first, and then we tackle the diabetes. So the interesting thing that the doc said to me, he said, and I looked at how many operations. I went through 3 operations, and then I got treated for my diabetes. But here's the bottom line: the doctor said to me, Doug, this was all preventable. If you should have been starting to see doctors, and this would have been all diagnosed if you had a proper family doctor. This walk-in clinic stuff just doesn't work. So I was actually, the only reason I have a family doctor today is because I had to have heart failure first, right?
No, my
Yeah,
goodness.
yeah. So that's what really got me motivated. And I started talking to my family physician a lot, and I said, this isn't right. I says I wanted a family physician. I've been on a waiting list, and I don't have one. And when they finally called me, I had to drive, an hour up the road to see a doctor, to get a family doctor. And I said, that's just not acceptable. And so, I said, and at that time, I became a counselor, city councilor here in Colwood. And I said, you know what? This is something we got to fix. We've got to fix this. And of course, the bottom line with the city, they said, you know what? That's a provincial responsibility. We don't get involved in that. And that didn't make sense to me. This is everybody's problem, every level of government, I think, anyways. This is my own bottom line on this. I says, the feds provide the money, the province sets the policies. They're not the implementers. They can't implement anything. I'm not being critical. That they're doing what they should be doing. They're very poor at implementation. So then of course, after being turned down by my council, they're saying we don't want to do this. I thought to myself, one day, I may run for mayor, and I'm going to make this our responsibility. So and the funny thing is, back in 2021, I decided that maybe this municipal government isn't for me. I've got lots of things to do. I'm a former governor at the university. I was on the board of governors with Railroads University. I was on the board of directors for the Aviation Museum. I was on the board of governors for the Conservatory of Music. I had lots of things to do, so this it didn't phase me. And early in 2022, a lot of people convinced me to run for mayor. And I hummed and hawed and considered it for about a month, and then I made the choice to do it. So this all started. So the way that when I ran for mayor, I did it in an interesting way. I divided our city up into 8 areas. There are 8 distinct areas, and then I surveyed 100 people in each of the areas. So that's 800 people. So that's a good sampling for a population of 23,000 people. And I said, what's the most important things to you? Well, the one recurring item was family doctors. Interesting, right? So, my whole platform was based on what I heard. I did a very systematic way of doing it because I'm an engineer by background. I'm a professional engineer. So you never get data in front of an engineer, right? So, I analyzed it and I came up with a platform. And I said I'm committed to doing. There's 7 areas that I said I am going to tackle, and there's way more, but I said this is where I think the priorities are, and one of them happened to be healthcare, getting family doctors. And everyone thought, well, he probably accomplished these other 6, but family doctors, oh, that's not going to happen. Well, as soon as I got elected by a landslide, I did take a 70% of the vote here in Colwood. And so when I decided to look at this problem, it just was interesting. I heard some doctors that were going around with their ideas on how they think we could fix it. So I decided to go grassroots. So my office here was full of doctors all the time. And of course, I was working with my own family physician. How can we fix this? How can we do this? And so, what started as a recruitment strategy turned out to be let's propose a different model. Let's do something, but let's be legal about this because I'm a municipal employee. I are not employee, but I'm the mayor, and I've got to follow the community charter and the municipal act. I can't get around that. So I thought to myself, what can I do? How can I stay within this? How do I make sure I follow the Canadian Health Act? Don't want anyone accusing me of tinkering where I shouldn't be tinkering. So, a lot of the credit for the ideas came from the doctors, particularly a core of these doctors. And they were so critical in my thinking. And then they brought other doctors in so I could listen to them. So the whole idea was, why don't the biggest frustration, what they told me at the time was, doctors go to school for 7 8 years, and they come out and they want to practice medicine. And a lot of them, if they go into the family physician, if they become a family physician, a lot of them end up being business people because they're opening clinics, they're running their the business side of it, the administration, and they're spending so much time with those overhead functions that it's not attracting the new generation millennial type doctors. Big frustration. So how do we get them back to being doctors? So the problem that I was trying to solve, my problem went from not only recruiting doctors for our city, because we had none, we had zero, 23,000 people, no doctors, because we just lost a family clinic, which was a private clinic, and they just said doesn't make sense. They couldn't keep doctors, they couldn't afford the overhead, so they closed down the clinic. So basically, I looked at the problem as 2 things. First of all, recruitment. How do we attract them? The second one was, how do we retain them? That's the problem with most models out there. There's all this, people are trying to attract them and they do fancy dancy things to attract them, but they can't retain them. Doctors can be very mobile, especially family doctors. They go locum to find out which clinic gives them the best deal. So that's when the whole idea was generated. Why don't we as a city provide this as a service? Why don't we make them employees? Why don't we give them pensions? Well, novel idea. Retention, right? Why don't we give them benefits? Novel idea. And does this all make sense? So let's do a business plan. Let's do a high level business plan. And we looked at it and we said, holy mackerel, we can do this. Okay, so let's go find out legally if we can do this. Are we stepping out of bounds right now? And Lester, that was the longest period because the lawyers didn't know how to handle this because it was groundbreaking. No one's done this before, and they couldn't. They didn't have immediate answers for us. And so we just motored along. I presented to council what plans were. I got a high level, unanimous agreement with the city council here to let's proceed. Let's explore this even further. So we came up, and I'm one that I believe in a methodology. I don't like reinventing the wheel. So there was a very successful counselor up in the Comox Valley. You probably maybe saw this news article from about 2 or 3 years ago. And he successfully recruited 41 doctors for the Comox Valley. And I asked him, how did you do this? And then he explained how he did it. And it wasn't publishing, ads in newspapers. It wasn't doing any of that stuff. He just basically made videos which sold a lifestyle. And phenomenal. I mean, you think about it, it's genius. It's simple but genius. So I decided I'm just going to copy him. I copied what he did. In fact, we produce videos now that are his videos on steroids. That they're outstanding. People want to move here just look watching the videos. So we had that side of it. So again, we worked on this model, and this model basically is it works with the what they call the longitudinal family payment plan. It's their model. They allow it. The province said you can go ahead and do this. So basically, what happens is the doctors assign their payments to the city. So whatever the patients they see, they use the MOAs, which belong to the city, the medical office assistants, and we do the billing to the government, and then we pay them a salary in return, with a pension and any medical benefits with it. Now, is this model for everybody? Absolutely not. It is for some of those. Like we heard the frustrations. I heard this one doctor, in fact, a local doctor who owned a business all his life. He had a clinic and he went to sell it and he couldn't sell it. No one wanted it. He couldn't give it away, and so, that was his retirement fund. So, what we're offering here is that, you come work for us and we'll look after all the administrations. Because if you think about it, a city is really well established. We can do payroll. We got HR services. We'll hire the MOAs. We'll look after, any labor issues. Doctors don't want to deal with that. So we just want you to come here and be a doctor for 8 hours a day. You're just looking after healthcare. They have no more. They don't have to worry every night about, how they're going to pay their overhead, how they're going to pay their rent. They don't have to worry about hiring accountants to do their accounting for their business at the end of the year. They have none of those worries now. We've taken it all the way. They're simply an employee. And so, this is how this spawned, and we refined the model, and we got it working. And as you probably seen, we hired our first doctor back mid-December. We have our second doctor now. We just hired, and we got a third one that is very close to the near the bottom of the funnel now. That we're just waiting for them to sign on. Lots of interest. In fact, we did something that was very innovative. There was a family physician conference that was held in Vancouver back in November. And before we even had anything finalized and got approvals, we pitched our Colwood tent and we recruited there. And we had 115 doctors that signed up with an expression of interest. Uh, so, like I said, it's not going to be for every doctor because under the clinics that they have, the community health clinics and things like that, they can make a lot more money, of course, right? Because they're billing out, and they could probably see a lot more patients. But we're not asking that. We're asking for real community health here, and we are not driving those same numbers that they're driving right now. So this is a lifestyle balance. We're saying, hey, we just want you to work your 8 hours, and that's all we want, and we want you to see, this many patients in an hour, and that's it. Because we want that care within our community. Some other things that we have, and we just sort of says, do you buy in? Maybe once every couple months, 3 months, that you go visit seniors at their homes within Colwood. Yeah, absolutely. So it's bringing that old-fashioned doctoring back into this. So it's a different model, as I said here, but and like I said, it's going to attract some, and others it may not attract. So some lessons learned right now so far are that maybe there's other ways that we can do this. There's other clever ways that we're thinking about right now to get the newer, younger doctors now just graduating. We're looking at maybe potential solutions of maybe paying off their student loans, because that's a big issue, right? And then they could pay us back at no interest, and over whatever number of years, just so that we can retain them. That's another way. But I guess we looked at this in a wholesome way too. So not only did we do we have pensions and benefits for these doctors, we also work with all our developers, because we're building 300 to 400 new homes a year right now. We're growing so fast. Our population is growing at a rate of 600 to 800 people a year. So per capita, we're, I think, the second fastest growing city within Greater Victoria. And so what we've done with the developers, they've offered massive discounts for doctors that will work at the clinic here. So that's another area that we're helping them with, right? So, and so we've got two major developers that have signed up to our program. And on top of that, we've also worked with the daycare centers. So we got spots reserved for our doctors if they have kids. And then now the latest is some businesses are saying, we want to provide them more incentive. We can maybe give them discounts. If you issue them a card and they're from our clinic, and so our plan is to hire 8 doctors at this particular clinic. That's what we're limited to because of the size. Our bigger plan is we want to build a 15,000 square foot facility and have all the surrounding allied healthcare professionals in the same building, including having X-ray place, having uh, blood work. Having you can get your blood work done here. Again, we have to all drive away from here, and just from a greenhouse gas perspective too, there's some environmental advantages too. So, but lots of things that are happening, lots of new ideas, very progressive in our thinking right now, and it is. I mean, people thought I was, that word was. I didn't use that word. People thought I was crazy, and I think some people just thought I was too crazy. That I think some of them thought you're going to fail. But so far it's been successful. But learning lots right now. We've learned so many lessons right now, and personally, right now I've been inundated with calls. People are really curious about this right now from different municipalities. In fact, I'm booked for about 3 or 4 engagements now for major shows right now to talk about what we've done. So very innovative. And that's what I think I bring to this job right now. I'm not your typical politician. I'm an entrepreneur, and we try to think outside the box. And this is the new way that our city is moving forward. And in fact, I just hired a new chief administration officer, city manager, and his biggest his why he wanted this job so much is because of how progressive and how entrepreneurial we are here, and he just loves everything that we're doing. So this is just not the only thing we're doing, that's for sure. We're doing some some pretty innovative things. In fact, I was just bragging to someone the other day ago. We have this group here called the Grumpy Taxpayers, right, in Victoria, and they look at watch governance all over the place, and they have this award every year. It's called the Candy Cane Award, which is awarded for efficient, entrepreneurial, effective government, and we've won it 2 years.
Wow. That's probably the most important award you've won,
Oh
right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
far.
yeah. So
Very impressive.
that's interesting. So, but in fact, I've been invited to the BC Economic Summit in the Okanagan in the summer, and they said, "Hey, listen, we don't normally have someone come and do these types of talks here, but this is so this is so interesting what you did. Could you do a presentation?" Yeah, sure, I can do that. But if this is going to help all the communities, like I've told people right now, don't jump into this right now until you do your own homework. But we
Hmm.
can help you. I've offered my help. I don't want to do it for every city. I'm trying to get disciples out there to spread this. And like I said, you may have this clinic and you may have a private clinic sitting beside it. It's two different models, but the bottom line is, we're going to look after our family physicians. We're hiring 8, which is 10,000 more people that will have a doctor. And so per capita, we'll have the highest percentage of citizens attached to a family doctor than any other city here in British Columbia. So something we're
That's
proud of.
amazing.
Yeah.